Prime Minister of Japan, Secretary General of the Communist Party of Vietnam, the President of the New Development Bank, as well as Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia. So what I can tell you from the ground, as you said earlier, so all preparation to warmly welcome the Fijian Prime Minister has been conducted, and approximately state ceremony will begin at 10:30 a.m. local time. And currently, the Prime Minister of Fiji is on the way from Grand Hyatt Hotel to the Merdeka Palace in central Jakarta. And what I can tell you from the ground, the state welcoming to visit Prime Minister Fiji is conducting, and we see and we hear the trumpet has already started to welcoming the state visit of Fijian Prime Minister up until now. And currently, all preparation have been made, and we see also the presidential security forces is already prepared for the visit itself. And I saw like several ministers from red and white cabinet is also gathered in front of the Merdeka Palace in Jakarta to welcome the Fijian Prime Minister Siti Feni Rabuka. And meanwhile, talking about what will be discussed about the cooperation between the two leaders, a number of points or sectors have been discussed, including regional security, education, agriculture, disaster risk management, and many more, where Fiji is an important partner for Indonesia in the Pacific region in order to create a peaceful, stable, and also prosperous Pacific region. And we also got the information from Deputy of Protocol, Press and Media at the Presidential Secretary, Yusuf Permana. He said that this meeting signifies increased collaboration between the two countries in maintaining stability and prosperity in the Pacific region, and underlines the commitment of the two countries in facing global and world challenges. And the bilateral relation between Indonesia and Fiji has been going on since 1974. So it's about 51 years, the bilateral relation between Indonesia and Fiji. And yeah.
All right, Fakhri and Bahri and Arya Siddhartha, thank you so much for your report from Istana Merdeka or Merdeka Palace in Jakarta. Well, President Prabowo Subianto is now receiving the Prime Minister of Fiji at the palace. Now, on today's special edition, we focus on a key diplomatic milestone, which is the official visit of Fijian Prime Minister Siti Feni Rabuka to Indonesia. And today, joining us in our studio is Deputy Executive Director for Research at CSIS Indonesia, Shafia Muhibat. With her extensive knowledge of ASEAN Pacific relations and Indonesia's foreign policy, will explore the broader significance of this visit and how Indonesia is positioning itself as a vital bridge between Southeast Asia and the Pacific. So let's get into the conversation. So welcome, Fifi. Thank you so much for being here in the studio. It's very interesting to have this visit right now. So what do you think of the context of the timing? Why is the Fijian Prime Minister's visit to Indonesia is very significant at this very moment?
Well, of course, bilateral relations for Indonesia, any bilateral relations would, of course, be significant. And for a country like Fiji, it's extra significant because basically it's a neighboring country. The Pacific region is a region that's very important for Indonesia's foreign policy. And it has been that way for the longest time since, we established diplomatic relations with Fiji since 1974. So last year was the 50th anniversary. So of course, we need to cultivate this relationship, this good neighborhood policy with the surrounding countries around Indonesia. So of course, it's important.
Okay, if you could describe what is it like when we talk about the current state of diplomatic relations between Indonesia and Fiji in terms of a lot of factors in terms of trade, so maybe education and other relations that we built with Fiji?
Well, the current relations, of course, you can't really compare it with Indonesia's relations with our more major partners like Southeast Asia or China or the US. But with Fiji, for example, so our current state of relationship is mostly on, we do quite a lot of development and capacity building. So, for example, agricultural training, Indonesia does quite a lot of that in Fiji. And then there's also, of course, economic and trade relations. Although, as I said, maybe in terms of number, in terms of statistics, it's not as important or not as high as with our major economic partners. And there's, of course, the people-to-people cultural educational relations. So it's still very much limited, but considering the geographical position, I still would say it's important.
Okay, now we'll hold the discussion for a bit. Let's go to the Merdeka Palace, where we can see right there in the palace already the Prime Minister of Fiji is welcomed by President Prabowo Subianto with some of the ministers from the Red and White Cabinet. So the Prime Minister of Fiji is now entering the Merdeka Palace. And here are the guards, and some of the guards are actually dressed in the Indonesian traditional costumes from the 34 provinces of this nation. The Prime Minister himself arrived in Jakarta yesterday and will do the official visit today. At the ceremony, he will meet with President Prabowo Subianto and will continue with the tete-a-tete meeting. After that, it will be continued with bilateral meetings with the delegations and will be closed with a luncheon at the palace.
Tegak senjata! Gerak!
Now, as we see in the video right now, the Prime Minister of Fiji, His Excellency Rabuka, now entering the National Monument area from the Grand Hyatt Hotel where he stays, and now entering the palace through the National Monument area. And as we see as well, the welcoming of this official visit is somewhat of a full-blown, we would say.
Istirahat, elemen! Out!
Now we're live again from the Merdeka Palace in Jakarta, where President Prabowo Subianto is going to have and welcome the Fijian Prime Minister Siti Veni Rabuka at the palace. And we saw also just before now, the ministers of the Red and White Cabinet are on standby to receive the Prime Minister. And now the Fijian delegations are also seen getting ready to welcome the Prime Minister. This kind of receiving or welcoming the Fijian Prime Minister is very serious, is very prepared as well, even since yesterday when he arrived at the airport and was welcomed by some of our officials. So back to you, Fifi. Let's have this conversation going on again. We know that this is part of the soft diplomacy for Indonesia, and Indonesia seeing Fiji as somewhat a gateway to the Pacific region. How does this visit align with Indonesia's broader strategy of soft diplomacy in the Pacific region, you think?
Indeed, as we've discussed, Pacific region is very important for Indonesia. If we look back 2019, our foreign ministry issued a new initiative. It was called, I think, the Pacific Elevation Initiative, to basically express how important the Pacific region is for us. And with this new initiative at that time, 2019, we wanted to basically elevate all types of relations with each and individual Pacific Island countries, be it in trade and economic relations, on political security relations, cultural, educational. So to show basically that even though sometimes it seemed that the Pacific region is, quote unquote, forgotten by Indonesia because we always look sort of like eastwards and northwards, but it's still a very important region for Indonesia because it's of the geographical position mostly.
Okay, so what do you think is the most important right now if we'd like to strengthen, relations with Fiji as one of the gateways to this Pacific region? Is it more to the trade? But we know that, Fijian population is not that significant. It's under 1 million of population. Or is it anything that you think is, let's focus on that? Is it disaster management risk, or is it security?
Sure. I mean, traditionally, of course, economic and trade is high up there in the priority. But rightly said, disaster management has become an issue that's very important for both countries. So going forward, I think in the future, issues like climate change, sustainability, disaster management, because both countries are very prone to natural disasters. So these are the kinds of issues that would be very important going forward. So of course, then, the traditional economic trade will still be important, but we need to focus more on the issues that is more at hand, more important in the future. So issues even in the future like digitalization is also, of course, something that Indonesia and Fiji can work together.
Now, of course, Fiji also opens collaborations with other nations. We've heard that, historically, they were very close as well with Australia and New Zealand. So a lot of imports are actually coming from those two countries. But Indonesia is actually fortunate enough to have, geographically, it's quite close as well to Fiji. Indonesia also describes itself as a Pacific country, Pacific country. From a diplomatic standpoint, though, what does that identity mean in practice?
Ooh, interesting question. In terms of identity, of course, it means that, Indonesia is a big country, right? The surroundings of Indonesia comprise of different regions. So, and Pacific region is definitely one part of our identity.
All right, let's continue. But let's go now to Merdeka Palace, where the convoys are now entering the premise of Merdeka Palace, actually right at the lobby. So right here we see the President Prabowo Subianto is receiving Prime Minister of Fiji, Sitiveni Rabuka, with a very warm welcoming ceremony happening at the Merdeka Palace. And they shook hands right after the Prime Minister went outside or came outside of the car. Now both leaders are walking towards the lobby of the Merdeka Palace, where the official ceremony will be taking in progression right now at the Merdeka Palace.
Hormat Sonjana! Rock! Ogo Sonjana! Rock! Lapor upacara penyambutan siap dimulai. Selanjutnya pasukan siap diperiksa.
All right, so we're still witnessing the one of the milestones of Indonesian diplomacy, where the President Prabowo Subianto is receiving and welcoming the Fijian Prime Minister Siti Veni Rabuka at the Merdeka Palace as they now reviewing the gods. And also we saw in the background of the two leaders, the kids of Indonesian kids also welcoming the Prime Minister at the palace. The two leaders having military backgrounds, and this looks like a very full-blown welcoming for the Fijian Prime Minister. And after this, right after the Prime Minister introduces the delegations as well, the President, Prabowo Subianto, will take or invite Prime Minister Rabuka to enter the Merdeka Palace for the official ceremony, continued by the tete-a-tete, and then after that the bilateral meetings with the delegations, and will be closed with the luncheon. And of course there will also be a press conference by the two leaders. Now, let's get back to our questions discussing about this visit. Fifi, thank you so much for being here once again. So, Indonesia always describes the country as the Pacific country, and we are also a member of this Melanesian spearhead groups as the Pacific Island Forum as well. So, from a diplomatic standpoint, what does that identity, diplomatic means? What does it mean as a Pacific country in practice?
I mean, well, in practice, I mean, it's hard to say how we can define it significantly different to our identity as a Southeast Asian or as an East Asian. But of course, it shows that Indonesia wants to play a role in different regions of the world. And I think for a country like Indonesia, we call ourselves a middle-income country, a middle-power country. So it's, of course, very important to exert this role in all regions that we can take part in. So Pacific region is, of course, one of them.
Okay. Now, let's get back to the Merdeka Palace now. As we see now, they are trying to introduce the ministers and delegations that comes together with the Prime Minister of Fiji. Now, we see on the screen President Prabowo Subianto is handshaking with the ministers and the delegations, whereas from our part, from the red and white cabinet, we saw the foreign minister also welcoming the Prime Minister, the cabinet secretariat also attending this ceremony, the higher education minister as well seen at the palace, the women empowerment minister, and the Deputy Minister of Finance of Indonesia also appeared and attending this ceremony. Now, both leaders have entered the main hall of the Merdeka Palace. The Prime Minister of Fiji will sign the guest book. And before that, of course, they'll take pictures together. What a warm welcome in this very warm morning in Jakarta. Yes, we see now the Prime Minister is about to sign the guest book, where all, of course, all leaders that have visited the Merdeka Palace signed that book as well. Now, President Prabowo Subianto is leading all the way for the Prime Minister of Fiji. Now they're entering the Alpha Room to start the bilateral meeting. So back to our discussion, Fifi, in your point of view, can soft power tools, as what we see the Indonesian government is doing as well with Fijian, such as education, cultural exchanges, humanitarian aids. We saw a lot of scholarships are also being given to the Fijian communities. Can this soft diplomacy be more impactful than the traditional diplomacy in the Pacific context?
Sure. If your question is, can it be more impactful, then it's hard to say. But if it's impactful, then I would say yes. Because then, different types of diplomacy would have their own strategies and different impacts. But to answer your question, it will be impactful. It can be impactful, which has been seen, throughout other examples as well. So it basically, Indonesia wants, like I said, Indonesia wants to play a bigger role in the Pacific region, which means that it wants to also build a better image among the Pacific countries. And that is something that is the main objective of what soft diplomacy is, I think. And yes, to have more presence there, to have better relationships with countries like Fiji, of course will help in building this good image for Indonesia in the Pacific region, which is, I think, like I said, is the main objective of basically doing this type of engagement with countries like Fiji.
Okay. When we talk about other things like trade, for example, Indonesia of course, both countries are trying to strengthen this as well. But then we also see other nations like China, let's say. A lot of China's goods have actually entered Fiji as well. So do you think Indonesia can actually see other opportunities in terms of trade? That we know that Fiji is not manufacturing a lot of things, but they need things as they're an agriculture country. They're receiving a lot of tourists as one of the global tourist destination. But what can Indonesia do in terms of this trade, strengthening?
So we need to keep in mind, as you said earlier, I mean, Fiji has quite a small population, especially compared to Indonesia. So it's not a big market. So I think we need to keep that in mind. So actually, trying to increase our trade relations, we need to keep in mind that we might not be able to increase in terms of our exports there, because there's only so much a country can take when the population is really not that much. So we need to think of strategies to decide what kind of commodities would be better for us to export there. So for the longest time, I think agriculture is, of course, one part of it, and a number of other commodities as well. And yes, you're rightly so. China is now a big player. In not only in Fiji, but I think throughout the Pacific region. But I still think that Indonesia still have some leeway in terms of finding out which types of exports is still needed by countries like Fiji.
How about looking at Fiji as a gateway to other Pacific nations? Do you think it's also an opportunity?
Well, Fiji is one of the more prominent countries in Pacific Island, if I can call it that. We do already have an embassy there in Fiji. We don't have that many others in other Pacific Island countries. So it shows that we do consider Fiji as one of the more important countries in that region. And as a way, putting our embassy there already shows that it's a hub for us to actually reach out to the other Pacific countries.
Yeah, so we opened our embassy in Suva back in 2022. So this shows how serious Indonesia is to build the relationship with Fiji. So now, when we see this relationship with Fiji, is there any potential areas? We mentioned about the climate disaster management and risk that actually is prone to both countries, Indonesia and Fiji, because we are two prone disaster countries. What are the most potential areas for this cooperation in terms of climate resilience, disaster response, sustainable development?
Definitely. So issues like climate change, sustainable development, disaster management, I think will be the main key areas for cooperation in the future of bilateral Indonesia-Fiji relations. There's a lot to learn from each countries. Like I said, we're both very prone to natural disasters. Indonesia has had its share of trying to develop our own disaster preparedness, which is something that we can, of course, cooperate with countries like Fiji in terms of having lessons learned from each countries and how we deal with our own disaster management and disaster preparedness. So these are some of the issues that I think will be very important going forward.
We sort of like took, the topic about China also already having presence in Fiji. Do you think what Indonesia is doing right now, having this welcoming the Prime Minister, is trying to counterbalance China's growing presence in the Pacific region through bilateral, multilateral efforts?
Not directly. I don't think so. I do think that Indonesia and China have different objectives in terms of our engagement in the Pacific region. So whether or not Indonesia gets closer to Fiji or any other Pacific countries does not mean that China is getting further away from these countries as well. So I do think that we each have our own agenda, we each have our own objectives when being present in the Pacific region. So not directly, I don't think so.
Okay, when we talk about global uncertainties and global challenges, how can you explain, this relationship, Indonesia and Fiji, can actually address that challenges? I mean, in terms of what? We see how the uncertainties are going, and now Indonesia is trying to build, more bilateral relations with other nations. How can we see the strengthening of these two countries actually addressing the challenges?
Sure. I mean, frankly speaking, not so much. As I said, you can't really compare our bilateral relations with a country like Fiji to our more solid, more highly prioritized relationship like with Southeast Asia or with China or with the US. Those, of course, would be more influential in terms of how Indonesia can prepare itself in this global uncertainty and geopolitical rivalry, as you said. But having said that, I do think that Indonesia needs to manage relationship with its immediate neighbors, including the Pacific countries. So even though it does not have that high leverage as a bilateral relations with China, for example, but still very important.
So how does this tie into Indonesia's leadership aspirations in South-South cooperation? As we saw now, the global South is on the rise. So South-South cooperation or frameworks like the Melanesian Spearhead Group or MSG is actually quite significant.
Interesting. This year we are commemorating the 70th anniversary of the Asia-Africa conference, which one of the main focus is, of course, on South-South cooperation. So when the state of the world right now, as you said, with a lot of uncertainties, US-China rivalry getting worse and so on, South-South countries, whether we like it or not, we need to depend on each other as well. So instead of, trying to always increase our relationship with major powers, we need to look at individual South-South countries as well and build upon that to try to find alternatives to having good relations with major powers. So definitely very much relevant.
All right. Now, we also touched on the people-to-people sort of like collaborations, including education exchanges, religious outreach, or even sports and youth programs. How do these play in enhancing bilateral relations? Compared to, let's say, infrastructure or other things that we try to help the country.
Very important. I mean, frankly speaking, Indonesia, Fiji, as Indonesians, how much do we know about Fiji? If you meet somebody from Fiji, you can ask them how much do they know about Indonesia. Yeah, this shows that this lack of understanding really plays a role in terms of defining how important a country is to each other.
Like I just remember Fiji water when we heard the name Fiji.
Exactly.
Right?
So that's all we know, basically. To be very frank. And this shows that efforts for soft diplomacy, building people-to-people relations, is very influential in helping, the actual diplomacy, the hard diplomacy. Because without that, hard diplomacy is just a bunch of elites trying to connect with each other without any substantive meaning behind it.
And no impact to the people.
Exactly.
All right. Do we see a rising interest from, say, the Indonesian civil society or maybe universities in engaging the Pacific region? We know that there are the youth groups, let's say, or maybe other layers that try to strengthen as well to engage more with the Pacific region.
I think there is. As the world becomes more interconnected, there is always this curiosity and interest to engage with as many countries and as many cultures as possible. So the potential is there. But I do think that there are challenges which still prohibits Indonesians and Fijians to actually connect with each other. Connectivity is still a problem. I'm not sure how long it takes to fly from Jakarta to Fiji. Exactly. So with this lack of connectivity and lack of information as well, as we mentioned, in how much do we know about Fiji. So I think that prohibits this interest or this need to actually get to know each other better and to actually build on this connection.
So there are still a lot of things that
absolutely,
need to be done,
absolutely,
right, to have this relationship going on, especially in the Indonesian civil society of Indonesia and the Fijian. Okay, so is there any potential for deeper ASEAN-Pacific institutional cooperation, you think?
Institutional, I think it's a tricky word. I mean, in Pacific region, they have the, as you mentioned, the Pacific Islands Forum, for example. Indonesia has been a dialogue partner of PIF since 2001. And I think Fiji also has very close relations with ASEAN as well. So there are these mechanisms. But of course, to have it more institutionalized can be tricky. It's not as easy as that. But I think the interest is there. For Indonesia, I think to engage more with Fiji, I think is something that Indonesia is really interested in. I mean, to be frank, when you talk about Indonesia and the Pacific Island, of course, for us, the main issue is, of course, Papua. And I think being engaged with the Pacific Islands Forum, being engaged with countries like Fiji and the others, is still very much important for Indonesia. But having it more institutionalized can be tricky.
Yeah, I remember that Indonesia also hosted the island states.
Yeah, archipelagic and island states. Yeah, AIS. Yeah,
right. It was in Bali. Okay, so that's how serious Indonesia is.
Yes, yes.
Is there any the way that Indonesia might lead, the ASEAN Pacific institutional cooperation? In that sense, how can this country lead Indonesia if we would like to take that role?
Oh, that's a tough question. First of all, of course, Indonesia needs to maintain leadership in ASEAN first, right? And it is something that there's still challenges within ASEAN and how we can move forward, including in terms of Indonesia's leadership. The potential is there, but I think in a lot of ways, it's always easier to have this sort of like bilateral exchanges like the one we're having right now. So with these visits and all, is always easier. But having a more institutionalized, regional-wide cooperation, even though the framework is there, might be more complicated.
Okay, how do you see, let's say, if we see, we don't really put attention on what media members in Fiji actually sound their perspectives, but when it comes to Indonesia, there are perhaps certain issues that are very much focused on. How do you think that we can actually make this positive as well for Indonesia in terms of the media?
Of course.
The narratives.
Of course, yeah. Like I said, the narratives, I mean, for Fiji, when they look at Indonesia, of course, the Papua issue is I think, on top of on top of the list of the things they know about Indonesia. And I think this relates to this lack of information or smooth flow of information, be it from Indonesia to Fiji and vice versa. And when there is, difficulty in terms of the flow of information, that makes it really hard to create or to present this narrative that is beneficial for both countries. And of course, then the role of media is very important. Building, media-to-media relations is something that's very important. And I think to also counter some of the negative narratives that might exist in Fiji about Indonesia.
Okay, that's a very interesting thing to be looked
sure,
at as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we also have this, the PICTA, or the Pacific Island Countries Agreement. So they have this tariffs that are actually very low or even none at all. So a lot of things that of the products of Indonesia that can go through Fiji will be relatively the same to all the Pacific countries. So do you think this can be beneficial to Indonesia? I mean, of course, we cannot only rely on trade, but yeah, we have PICTA here, P-I-C-T-A.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, we're back to the main understanding that Fiji is not really that big of a market.
Yeah.
So, of course, low tariff helps in any kind of trade, in any kind of trade agreements. Low tariff definitely helps. But then again, that should apply not only to Fiji, but the whole of Pacific region as well. And it is still a very potential market, even though you have to realize that there are other markets much bigger than the Pacific region. But of course, it's a market that we cannot leave behind.
Of course. Okay. So now let's go back again to perhaps what we should watch for the next. What would be a success indicator of this visit?
Sure. any increase of bilateral relations, although it's really hard to create a good indicator, but any increase, any improvement in the bilateral relations would be seen as a good outcome from this visit. I'm not sure, your colleague earlier mentioned the last time a leader from Fiji visited Indonesia and vice versa. I think it's been quite a while, although I think the Deputy PM came to the AIS meeting in Bali 2 years ago, but that was not a bilateral visit. So I think improvements in these relations, and if it can open ways to a better flow of communication, better people-to-people connection, better understanding about Fiji in Indonesia and vice versa, I think that can actually already become a very good outcome of this visit.
It seems like although the relationship has been going on for 50 years, but there's still a lot to be done to basically open this relationship even more vivid to each other, right? Now, if you could give maybe one piece of advice to Indonesia's policymakers on Pacific engagement, we have all the ministers, I mean the foreign ministers, education minister, and even the deputy of the finance minister there. What would it be as a suggestion?
Yeah, basically, don't forget the Pacific region. It's always more lucrative to look at, East Asia, Northeast Asia, Europe as a potential market for Indonesia. But there are our immediate neighbor is still one of our immediate neighbors are the Pacific region, and so please don't forget about them. If we look at the current state of bilateral relations, it's good, but it's still very minimum. Trade is there, but it's considered minimum. Cultural exchanges is there. Educational exchanges is there. We give scholarships to Fiji quite a lot as well. But still, there's a lot of room for improvement. So I do think that we need to look more specific into some of the issues, like we mentioned, digital, disaster preparedness. Some of this are actually very important for the future bilateral relations.
Yeah, so it seems like this visit is going to be another opener for the strengthened relationship between Indonesia and Fiji. They talked about a lot of possible sectors to be strengthened in. Let's say the security was mentioned as well, disaster management, addressing to these challenges, as well as trade and other sectors as well, and of course education and cultural exchanges. So once again, I would like to thank Shafia Muhibat from the CSIS as the Director Executive for Research of this CSIS. Thank you so much for speaking with me, and this very important milestone for Indonesia's diplomacy on the Prime Minister of Fiji's visit to Indonesia. And today's conversation has highlighted how diplomacy goes beyond state visits and official communiques. It lives in people-to-people connections, shared regional aspirations, and the mutual respect between nations. And See Today Updates will be back, so stay tuned here.
Lagi bersama saya Imam Darto di Ngonten ngobrolin tentang Nusantara. Hap, hap. Wih, nggak banyak-banyak, Neng. Santai aja, lapar situ. Orang Malang ya?
Iya, Malang.
Oh, Malang.
Arek ngalam.
Oke, bisa bahasa ngalam?
Bisa.
Coba.
Matur suwun.
Wah, cuma segitu saja.
Ya, dia MD. MD-nya ada panjangannya tuh.
Apa tuh? My Dream.
Hi wonderful woman, welcome to All About Women.
Ketika saya masuk ke S2, kebetulan saya dapat beasiswa S2 Arkeologi UI. Profesor saya bilang, museum itu tempat belajar apapun. Oke, saya bikinlah program sekolah tari tradisional gratis.
Berharap bisa jadi jembatan untuk anak-anak yang memiliki nasib sama seperti saya, supaya juga mereka bisa keluar dari rantai kemiskinan gitu yang sudah turun-temurun di keluarganya.
So this is hay, rumput kering.
Here, they care for dozens of healthy and strong cows.
So the key to good quality hay is to get good quality grass.
Kopi Luwak is brewed coffee using coffee beans extracted from the feces of the civet coconut mongoose.
Karena luwak pemandan terkenal dengan pemilih. Bagi kita ini udah mateng, tapi belum tentu bagi luwak nanti juga dimakan. Karena kalau luwak, mereka akan memilih lagi.
Seni itu udah jalan hidup saya ya Mas ya. Bisa bertahan di dunia kesenian, bagi saya itu udah sesuatu yang sangat mewah.
Mungkin ada yang bilang, apa sih gunanya seni itu gitu. Tapi buktinya sendiri, seni masih ada.
Satu ya, seni itu ya hidup. Kita hidup di dalam seni, kita membangun seni itu sendiri. Jadi kita menjadi satu, bahwa kita hidup di dalam seni.
Ya mungkin namanya Rumah Sinari Bumi juga tiba-tiba dari istri saya, karena banyak cahaya yang masuk gitu di rumahnya. Jadi kita namakan sajalah rumahnya Rumah Sinari Bumi.
Modern tropis dengan sentuhan Jepang dan Skandinavian.
Nah sebenarnya kalau Japandi itu kenapa agak naik daun? Karena menurutku nggak dihabis masa gitu. Kapanpun bisa dipakai, kapanpun bisa kita gunakan temanya.
Pindah ke desa itu yang jelas saya dan istri mengharapkan perbaikan dalam hal kualitas hidup ya.
Ada nih kehidupan yang harus kita pelihara gitu, dan salah satunya dengan tidak terus mengambil tapi mencoba juga untuk memberikan kembali kepada alam.
Ketika kita tinggal di desa, hidup jadi adem, ayem, tentrem.
Get ready for a fresh perspective on the news as we'll bring you the latest, interesting and inspiring news from Indonesia, Southeast Asia and around the world.
Time for some sports update.
Hello there, it's time again for C Today. This is for the second hour of the Charlie Show and you're still with me.
Pokemon Company is bringing exciting new projects to Indonesia, spanning sports, aviation and entertainment. So don't miss it. Catch all the latest updates only on C Today.
Are you soccer fans and want to make cute jersey decorations like this? Don't worry, Life Hacks has tips on how to make these unique jerseys using origami paper. We hope the tips and tricks we show you this time are helpful for you. You can watch the next episode of Life Hacks to get more tips and inspiration for your life. Au revoir, bestie!
There is one ancient sport that is still widely practiced today.
Now I'm in Bandung, West Java. We are going to expose the fun and healthy dose of an extreme sport, rock climbing.
So, Pak Yudi, how long have you been skydiving?
Aku dari mulai 2019, jadi kira-kira udah 3 tahun lebih lah, hampir 4 tahun lah. Ada loncat-loncatnya segala macem, dan lebih main di awan beneran kan. Nah, itu yang buat tertarik.
Hidup ini adalah sekolah. Setiap jam adalah jam pelajaran, setiap tempat adalah tempat belajar, dan siapapun yang datang ke kita pasti mau memberikan pelajaran. Oleh karena itu, jangan lelah untuk belajar. Terutama belajar tentang diri. Karena kita akan seumur hidup dengan diri ini. Yang akan terus-menerus menemani kita, itu cuma diri ini.
Indonesia has many endemic species. Its wildness and uniqueness make its existence threatened with extinction. So, how do they try to conserve?
Air butuh tempat, tanaman butuh tempat, hewan-hewan butuh tempat.
Bersama-sama melindungi yang ada di sini ya.
Kita jaga, kita rawat, dan kita lestarikan.
Only in Wild Cage.
Of happiness. It is not something that is sought, but they create it themselves with the simplicity and luxury of the nature that they love.
Hopefully, by watching this show, you don't just see beauty of tourism, but you can also realize that we live side by side with other creators. See you on other episode only on the Travel Note.
Only on the Travel Note.
Because life is
Pindah ke desa itu yang jelas saya dan istri mengharapkan perbaikan dalam hal kualitas hidup ya.
Ada nih kehidupan yang harus kita pelihara gitu. Dan salah satunya dengan tidak terus mengambil, tapi mencoba juga untuk memberikan kembali kepada alam.
Ketika kita tinggal di desa, hidup jadi adem, ayem, tentrem.
Indonesia is where the best adventures unfold under the open sky. A perfect canvas for extraordinary experiences.
I love this place. Absolutely love this place.
For more than 2 years now, I've been riding across Indonesia on my motorcycle.
So it's gonna be a beautiful day, guys. Let's go.
Selamat pagi, bro. Dadah, guys. See you next week, ya.
Hi, welcome back to our special coverage on the official visit of Fijian Prime Minister to Indonesia. So today, the Fijian Prime Minister Siti Veni Rabuka is scheduled to meet Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto at the Merdeka Palace today. The meeting is now ongoing, but let's flash back a little bit on the arrival when the Prime Minister entered the premise of Istana Merdeka Palace in Jakarta. So the Prime Minister was welcomed by the President himself, Prabowo Subianto, with several ministers from the red and white cabinets, as well as some delegations that came together with the Prime Minister. Now they're both having the bilateral meeting. From the President, Prabowo Subianto, is having the bilateral meeting with Prime Minister of Fiji, and we expect some of MOUs out of this bilateral meetings that covers some agendas. Some of the agendas that was planned or that were planned to be discussed were in the area of trade, in the area of strategic issues like development of cooperation, how to address the global challenges like the climate actions as well as climate changes and disaster resilience. We know that two countries, both Indonesia and Fiji, are two prone to disaster countries. So this is a very, very relevant sector to be discussed together for both countries. Another agenda as well of today includes a welcome ceremony at the palace that was actually already done, followed by the bilateral talks and the signing of key cooperation agreements. The leaders are also scheduled to deliver a joint press statement and attend a cultural showcase as well as state banquet to celebrate the strong and growing friendship between these two archipelagic nations. This meeting or this welcome visit is marking Prime Minister Rabuka's first official visit to Indonesia since returning to power in 2022. His visit brings renewed momentum to Fiji's engagement with Southeast Asia. Indonesia, as a key partner in the Pacific, continues to promote inclusive collaboration under the framework of Melanesian ties, South-South cooperation, and Indonesia's Pacific elevation vision. And of course, it's very relevant as well for the meeting as we have global uncertainties where Indonesia also look at the Pacific areas or Pacific nations as a partners as well, other than only the traditional partners that Indonesia already extends so far. Now in the morning, the Prime Minister was received by President Prabowo Subianto at around 10 at the Merdeka Palace. And both leaders reviewed the guards that were welcoming the Prime Minister. We also saw some of the security honor of guards as well right now. Some of the guards are actually dressed in national costumes of Indonesia. Very, very interesting as we saw. It looks like a parade, but actually these are the guards as well that dressed up with Indonesian national costumes. And of course, we also involved some of students, elementary students, to welcome the Prime Minister as we try to strengthen people-to-people contact Indonesia and Fiji. This is how it looks like, the welcoming ceremony. A full-blown welcoming ceremony taking place at Merdeka Palace in Jakarta. And not only the president, but also some of the ministers from the cabinet were welcoming the prime minister, as well as they would like to discuss many sectors as opening more into collaborations with Fiji. Prime Minister of Fiji arrived in Indonesia yesterday and was welcomed by some of the officials as well, where he stayed at the Grand Hyatt Hotel in central Jakarta, not very far actually from the Merdeka Palace. And this is earlier this morning where the parade or the convoy came and entered the premise of National Monument in Jakarta.
Istirahat, Hilbon! Out!
And Indonesia also had a chance to visit Fiji, and See Today was also included in it, where our news team, Fakhrian Bahri, had a chance to talk to our ambassador of Indonesia to Fiji, Mr. Duvito Simamora, and discussed some things regarding the bilateral relation between Indonesia and Fiji. And let's now see and peek what the interview is like between our news team, Fakhrian Bahri, and the ambassador of Indonesia to Fiji.
Fiji is an important partner for Indonesia in making the Pacific region peaceful, stable, and prosperous. Indonesia and Fiji celebrates 50 years of bilateral relation. What are the concrete forms of cooperation that will be improved for the two countries? To discuss it, joining with us, Indonesian Ambassador to Fiji, His Excellency Dupito Dharma Simamora. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for setting aside your time with Southeast Asia today. So, Mr. Ambassador, Indonesia currently has 11 million number of Melanesian races. They are at several provinces in Indonesia, namely in Papua, Maluku, and also East Nusa Tenggara. So why is it necessary to increase people-to-people connect between Indonesia and the Pacific region, especially for those with Melanesian racial backgrounds in Fiji?
Thank you for bringing that fact in our discussion today. And of course, you are right by saying that we have a substantial number of Melanesian ethnicity in Indonesia. It reconfirms actually that Indonesia is a Pacific country, and therefore it is necessary for us to continue strengthen the relationship, including between not only between governments but also between the peoples of Indonesia and the peoples of the countries in the Pacific, especially those who are in the Melanesian countries.
All right, Mr. Ambassador. So we are tending harmony for the Pacific with raising the theme connecting Indonesia and the Pacific through culture and also shared heritage. So it is one of a public diplomacy hosted by Indonesian Foreign Affairs Ministry through social cultural channels. So why is it necessary for the government to carry out public diplomacy missions through culture? And so far, what are the programs have been implemented related to cultural diplomacy and how Fiji sees Indonesia's role in the Pacific region?
There are many relevant reasons for us to continue and also to force the cultural diplomacy. The first consideration perhaps is that we don't understand each other. And therefore, through people-to-people collaboration, cultural diplomacy, I think it gives a good avenue for both sides to know each other better, and at the same time also, as we know that these people-to-people links also will foster goodwill and build long-term relationship and networks of cooperation. And Fahri, as you know that of course we need also to learn and benefit from each other's ideas and experiences, but we should not forget that cultural diplomacy also support overall diplomatic objectives.
So, in your opinion, how do you see Fiji's relation between Indonesia?
Fiji and Indonesia relations is in a very good shape. Both of us are archipelagic states. We are proud of that. We fought together for the UNCLOS 1982. At the same time, I think we also face the same challenges when it comes to climate change. How do we empower, the grassroots people, and at the same time, I think both countries as main players and also active players in the non-aligned movement, South-South cooperation. Of course, we will continue to do our best in order to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals in our own countries.
All right. So Indonesia and Fiji commemorates 50 years of bilateral relations. So tell us the cooperation and the partnership or relationship in the fields of economy, also cultural cooperation, education, and the assistance that has been going so far.
Fiji has been an important economic partner of Indonesia. As you know that we have enjoyed substantial surplus against trade surplus against Fiji, but at the same time also in the context of bilateral collaboration and cooperation, Indonesia has provided a lot of capacity building programs, and I think we still remember the assistance of Indonesia in building certain schools here in Fiji affected by the cyclone happened in 2016, and only recently Indonesia also provided medical equipment for Fiji. So all we can say that the collaboration, the cooperation between Indonesia and Fiji in the last 50 years have gone well, not only bilaterally but also regionally, at the same time also at global levels. And I think this is the spirit that we'd like to continue to have. But one important aspect in the relationship that we should again always remember is that it should be based on mutual trust and mutual respect.
You also said earlier that we have a strong collaboration between Indonesia and also the Fiji. So in your opinion, how do you see Indonesia's role in the Pacific regions as well?
Well, Indonesia is a development partner of Fiji. At the same time, Indonesia is also a dialogue partner of the Pacific Island Forum. And of course, we'll continue to work closely with Fiji as the regional leader of the Pacific Island countries. At the same time, Indonesia will continue to put the 2050 strategy of the Blue Pacific continent of the Pacific Island Forum as the center of our engagement with the Pacific. So I think it is very clear that Indonesia will here to stay as a reliable partner, as a strong partner, and looking forward, to the next or beyond 50 years of the relationship. I think we are very hopeful that this relationship will continue to from strength to strength.
Right, Mr. Ambassador. So looking at 50 years of bilateral relations between Indonesia and also the Fiji, especially in the economic and also trade sectors, so it is still very small when compared to other countries in the Pacific region. So what are the policy directions and also trade schemes that can be utilized by both countries so that Fiji can become a regional hub for the Pacific region's economy?
Well, in fact, Fiji has been a regional hub for a long time, not only in terms of education, but also, of course, transportation. As you know, Fiji Airways has been serving the region, for many years. And at the same time, I think we need also to consider that the capacity building program should be part of the trade and economic collaboration and cooperation with the Pacific and also for Fiji, of course. And I believe that being also an associate member of the Melanesian Spearhead Group, Indonesia can champion, sub-regional economic architecture, sub-regional economic cooperation. I think that is what we are doing at the moment. We are commissioning a study on how Indonesia can spearhead this kind of economic collaboration with the Melanesian countries, like what we have been doing in the context of ASEAN through BIMIAGA and Indonesia, Thailand, and also Malaysia growth triangle in other parts of our region. So I believe that Indonesia, again, as a big country, and also, of course, as a developing country, can assist, can support this sub-region of the Pacific. But even though we support, the Melanesian group of countries, again, the core of our engagement should be to the whole Pacific.
And you also underline that a capacity building in terms of the economic and also trade sectors, it is very important for both countries. And can you share with us the details about what kind of the capacity building programs that have been, input or implemented in these countries, both countries?
Well, I can have some projects that have been done or ongoing between Indonesia and Fiji, and also with the Pacific. The first is that recently we assisted Fiji in developing sustainable coffee industry, and I think it is only right for Fiji to be more independent when it comes to coffee, not only for the domestic consumption, but also for the growing tourism industry here in Fiji. So that is just one example, and of course soon, hopefully, Indonesia will partner with Fiji in developing the sustainable bamboo industry. Hopefully we'll start early next year, but the difference is that we'll have this for a long term. So we want Fiji to be not only self-sufficient, but to be to use this useful commodity. Bamboo is an asset of this country in order to support, not only let us say an export commodity, but also to support, the local economy. And also, we know that bamboo is also very important when it comes to, climate resilience initiatives and objectives.
All right. We also had a discussion with Fiji government under Director of Heritage, Art and Culture earlier. So they mentioned about the probability about the joint research between Indonesia and also Fiji, because Fiji is also have two famous, I should say, university in Pacific region. So can you tell us more about that?
Surely. I mean, every collaboration that we have been doing or will do in the future with Fiji will always involve the university, because we believe that this is also a way in order to make sure that what we are doing is scientifically proven and scientifically correct, and even including not only in cultural sectors, but also when it comes to the let us say agricultural cooperation, because Indonesia is about to build the regional agriculture center here in Fiji, but although it is intended for the whole Pacific, and the universities in Fiji, the University of South Pacific, of course we know that belongs to the whole Pacific Island countries, but also the national universities like Fiji National Uni and also Fiji University. So we'd like to have them also to be part of this, initiative in the future, because by having them as our partners, I believe that we will make sure that the center will serve the interest of the people here in Fiji and also the Pacific in general.
All right. So my last question, Mr. Ambassador, in the future, what's the strategy to strengthen Indonesia's relation with Asia Pacific countries, and what forms of cooperation will be enhanced?
We'll continue to assist Fiji in the way we can. I think Indonesia has a lot to offer on how we can improve the SMEs, for instance, and at the same time also we understand that the blueprint of the Pacific development, the Pacific way forward is the 2050 strategy. And we know that the 2050 strategy contains 7 major areas, 7 priority areas, and we'll work with them on how Indonesia can assist them in some of the priorities that they have. So Indonesia will not come to the Pacific, with its own agenda, but Indonesia will be together with the Pacific in achieving what they've already decided they would like to have before 2050.
Indonesian Ambassador to Fiji, His Excellency Dupito Dharma Simamora. Thank you so much for setting aside your time with Southeast Asia today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's our chat with Indonesian Ambassador to Fiji, His Excellency Dupito Dharma Simamora. Reporting from Suva, Fiji, Fahrian Bahri for C Today.
So that was our news team, Fahrian Bahri, having the chance to discuss with His Excellency Dupito Simamora, Indonesian Ambassador to Fiji, from Suva, Fiji. And right after the break, we'll still have the coverage of the visit of Prime Minister of Fiji to Indonesia. So stay here on C Today Updates.
Ya mungkin namanya rumah Sinari Bumi juga tiba-tiba dari istri saya, karena banyak cahaya yang masuk gitu di rumahnya. Jadi kita namakan sajalah rumahnya Rumah Sinari Bumi.
Modern tropis dengan sentuhan Jepang dan Skandinavian.
Nah sebenarnya kalau Japandi itu kenapa agak naik daun? Karena menurutku nggak di habis masa gitu. Kapanpun bisa dipakai, kapanpun bisa kita gunakan temanya.
Pindah ke desa itu yang jelas saya dan istri mengharapkan perbaikan dalam hal kualitas hidup ya.
Ada nih kehidupan yang harus kita pelihara gitu, dan salah satunya dengan tidak terus mengambil tapi mencoba juga untuk memberikan kembali kepada alam.
Ketika kita tinggal di desa, hidup jadi adem, ayem, tentrem.
Indonesia is where the best adventures unfold under the open sky. A perfect canvas for extraordinary experiences.
I love this place. Absolutely love this place.
For more than 2 years now, I've been riding across Indonesia on my motorcycle.
So it's gonna be a beautiful day, guys. Let's go.
Selamat pagi bro. Dadah guys. See you next week ya.
Welcome to C Today Business, your go-to source for the latest economic and business updates from Indonesia, Southeast Asia, and around the globe.
Get ready for a power-packed show of insights, interviews, and analysis that will keep you ahead of the curve.
So what we're trying to do here is that bonds, these are basically Indonesian government bonds, IDR bonds.
And we'll have our daily recap from the stock market that you don't want to miss, so stay tuned only on C Today Business.
Get ready for a fresh perspective on the news as we'll bring you the latest interesting and inspiring news from Indonesia, Southeast Asia, and around the world.
Time for some sports update.
Hello there, it's time again for See Today. This is for the second hour of the Charlie Show, and you're still with me.
Pokemon Company is bringing exciting new projects to Indonesia, spanning sports, aviation, and entertainment. So don't miss it. Catch all the latest updates only on See Today.
Oh, 5 medali emas tuh di PON Kaltim sama PON Riau. 2 kali saya sabu bersih.
Kalau kamu ketinggalan pelajaran sekolah, tanya teman kamu atau tanya guru-guru kamu apa yang ketinggalan atau apa, kejar, karena mungkin sekolah bisa ngebantu dengan prestasi.
Hi wonderful woman, welcome to All About Women.
Ketika saya masuk ke S2, kebetulan saya dapat beasiswa S2 Arkeologi UI. Profesor saya bilang, museum itu tempat belajar apapun. Oke, saya bikinlah program sekolah tari tradisional gratis.
Berharap bisa jadi jembatan untuk anak-anak yang memiliki nasib sama seperti saya, supaya juga mereka bisa keluar dari rantai kemiskinan gitu yang sudah turun-temurun di keluarganya.
Ya, orang memanggil saya Raja Dangdut itu ya saya sendiri nggak tahu sejak kapan ya. Tapi kan semua itu yang menarik masyarakat.
Iya, maksudnya waktu aku workshop lagi itu aku ngerasa kayak ini relate banget sama aku. Jadi ya udah deh aku ambil.
At the age of 21, Leodra can be considered one of the brightest singers in the Indonesian music industry. Despite the fierce competition, Leodra stands out as one of the most prominent artists.
Geopolitical rivalries, we believe in collaboration and cooperation, especially in the field of economic and trade and commerce. We believe that the world has become smaller. What happens in one part of the world will affect all parts of the world, and therefore it's more incumbent upon us to work together to achieve cordial relations between all countries. We have good cooperation agreements with Fiji, and I'm committed also to follow up on our agreements with our previous governments. We look forward to closer cooperation with your government in various fields of economic development. As you know, my government is carrying out a very extensive, comprehensive program of economic transformation. We are enhancing and strengthening our agriculture foundations. We want to be completely self-sufficient in food, and thank God we see very strong and promising progress. Even in the first 6 months of my government, production has increased to very high levels, and we are very happy if Fiji would like to participate and would like to maybe stand your young people to learn from our experience. I think we have also learned from our own experience. We have learned from our mistakes, but now we have very promising developments in the field of agriculture. We have developed new strains of plants, crops that prove to be very successful. For instance, in Indonesia for many years, productivity of soybean was very low. Perhaps 1 hectare only 1 ton, 1.2 tons. Now we have soybean that's producing more than 2.5 tons. Perhaps can be competitive with international standards. Also wheat, we have developed, we are trying to continue to develop wheat, strains of wheat that can be planted in Indonesia, which very difficult in previous years. Also new strains of rice, new strains of maize. We are also now having good technology and good practices in converting marsh and swamps to productive crop producing. So here, I think it's a field that we can maybe, because we have the same tropical climate that maybe can benefit some of your young people if they come to Indonesia to study here. We open our doors for Fiji. We would like to, as I said, we would like to have the best of cooperation with Fiji. We are committed to your regional training center in Raki, yes. We will. Don't believe. Yeah. Oh, I see. Economically, I think Fiji is Indonesia's fourth largest trading partner in Oceania. We'd like to strengthen this cooperation, and we highly appreciate your leadership in the Pacific Islands Forum, and we are very appreciative of your support in Indonesia's participation in the Pacific Islands Forum, and also your leadership in the Melanesian Spearhead Group. I think you.
So we just saw the bilateral meeting between President Prabowo Subianto and the Prime Minister of Fiji, Sitiveni Rabuka. Now the bilateral meeting is still ongoing. Some of the highlights that we could take from the bilateral meeting were that President Prabowo Subianto mentioned his commitment, Indonesia's commitment to participate in strengthening relationship with Fiji in terms of trade, in terms of financial transformation, in terms of agriculture, and as well as knowledge sharing, especially that Indonesia right now, under the administration of Prabowo Subianto, is undergoing the financial transformation. And this, he thinks, would be a good example as well for Fiji to have learned it from Indonesia's experience on this transformation. And other sector that was discussed as well was about agriculture, where Indonesia aims for food resiliency in the country, also strengthening its crops productions. And we know that Indonesia and Fiji have the same sort of like climate, very tropical. So the president thinks that maybe Fiji can also look at Indonesia as an example in terms of agriculture. Fiji itself is an agriculture country. It's very well known for its sugarcane production. But other than that, Indonesia also looks at Fiji as an opportunity and a gateway to more of the Pacific region, as Fiji needs a lot of manufacturing products to be imported to the country. So Indonesia still looks at some leeways of what can be exported as well to Fiji. And in terms of education, Indonesia also opens for collaborations. President Prabowo Subianto welcomes students from Fiji that would like to learn in Indonesia because people-to-people power tends to be one of the most important things to support other diplomacy ways in order to strengthening the bilateral relationship. Indonesia is a middle power country while Fiji is a developing country, and even though the relationship has been going on since 1974, it means it's more than 50 years, but it seems like a lot of windows are still needed to be opened, and Indonesia realizes that the relationship to Fiji as one of the most prominent countries in the Pacific region is very important as the world, as President Subianto said, is getting smaller, where the geopolitical challenges are getting harder as well. So all countries are looked at as very important allies and very important opportunities to have stronger relations from now and the future. And we saw also that the bilateral meeting was very warm, was also formal as well as casual. We saw some laughter exchanges between the two leaders, two former soldiers or military soldiers. Yes, and again, the president reiterated that in the future he would like to see more cooperations getting strengthened between the two countries. And President thanked Prime Minister of Fiji for its participation of Fiji nation to Indonesia's event that was held in Indonesia, and as well as relationships and collaborations in terms of Pacific and the shared values of Indonesia and Fiji. We still have more information covering the official visit of Fiji Prime Minister to Indonesia, so stay here only in See Today for the See Today updates.
Ya mungkin namanya rumah Sinari Bumi juga tiba-tiba dari istri saya, karena banyak cahaya yang masuk gitu di rumahnya. Jadi kita namakan sajalah rumahnya Rumah Sinari Bumi.
Modern tropis dengan sentuhan Jepang dan Skandinavian.
Nah sebenarnya kalau Japandi itu kenapa agak naik daun? Karena menurutku nggak dihabis masa gitu. Kapanpun bisa dipakai, kapanpun bisa kita gunakan temanya.
Pindah ke desa itu yang jelas saya dan istri mengharapkan perbaikan dalam hal kualitas hidup ya.
Ada nih kehidupan yang harus kita pelihara gitu, dan salah satunya dengan tidak terus mengambil tapi mencoba juga untuk memberikan kembali kepada alam.
Ketika kita tinggal di desa, hidup jadi adem, ayem, tentrem.
Indonesia is where the best adventures unfold under the open sky. A perfect canvas for extraordinary experiences.
I love this place. Absolutely love this place.
For more than 2 years now, I've been riding across Indonesia on my motorcycle.
So it's gonna be a beautiful day, guys. Let's go.
Selamat pagi bro. Dadah guys. See you next week ya.
Welcome to See Today Business, your go-to source for the latest economic and business updates from Indonesia, Southeast Asia, and around the globe.
Get ready for a power-packed show of insights, interviews, and analysis that will keep you ahead of the curve.
So what we're trying to do here is that bonds, these are basically Indonesian government bonds, IDR bonds.
And we'll have our daily recap from the stock market that you don't want to miss, so stay tuned only on See Today Business.
So this is hay, rumput kering.
Here, they care for dozens of healthy and strong cows.
So the key to good quality hay is to get good quality grass.
Kopi Luwak is brewed coffee using coffee beans extracted from the feces of the civet coconut mongoose.
Karena luwak pemandan terkenal dengan pemilih. Bagi kita ini udah mateng, tapi belum tentu bagi luwak nanti juga dimakan. Karena kalau luwak mereka akan memilih lagi.
Moto hidupku adalah bermimpi, berusaha, dan berdoa. Sebenarnya nggak nyangka juga sih, kayak tong setan ini, pekerjaan ini membawa aku sejauh ini. sampai bisa main tong setan ke luar negeri.
Dari dulu aku sangat suka banget hal-hal yang berbau menantang dan ekstrim. Maka dari itu aku bisa terjun di dunia trail ini yang dimana kan cewek itu jarang banget ya suka hobi gini.
Get ready for a fresh perspective on the news as we'll bring you the latest, interesting and inspiring news from Indonesia, Southeast Asia and around the world.
Time for some sports update.
Hello there, it's time again for See Today. This is for the second hour of the Charlie Show and you're still with me.
Pokemon Company is bringing exciting new projects to Indonesia, spanning sports, aviation, and entertainment. So don't miss it. Catch all the latest updates only on See Today. Welcome to See Today Business, your go-to source for the latest economic and business updates from Indonesia, Southeast Asia, and around the globe.
Get ready for a power-packed show of insights, interviews, and analysis that will keep you ahead of the curve.
So what we're trying to do here is that bonds, these are basically Indonesian government bonds, IDR bonds.
And we'll have our daily recap from the stock market that you don't want to miss, so stay tuned only on See Today Business.
Hi wonderful woman, welcome to All About Women.
Ketika saya masuk ke S2, kebetulan saya dapat beasiswa S2 Arkeologi UI. Profesor saya bilang, museum itu tempat belajar apapun. Oke, saya bikinlah program sekolah tari tradisional gratis.
Berharap bisa jadi jembatan untuk anak-anak yang memiliki nasib sama seperti saya, supaya juga mereka bisa keluar dari rantai kemiskinan gitu yang sudah turun-temurun di keluarganya.
Ya, orang memanggil Raja Dangdut itu ya saya sendiri nggak tahu sejak kapan ya. Tapi kan semua itu yang menarik masyarakat.
Iya, maksudnya waktu aku workshop lagu itu aku ngerasa kayak ini relate banget sama aku. Jadi ya udah deh aku ambil.
At the age of 21, Leodra can be considered one of the brightest singers in the Indonesian music industry. Despite the fierce competition, Leodra stands out as one of the most prominent artists.
Ya mungkin namanya rumah sinari bumi juga tiba-tiba dari istri saya karena banyak cahaya yang masuk gitu di rumahnya. Jadi kita namakan sajalah rumahnya rumah sinari bumi.
Modern tropis dengan sentuhan Jepang dan Skandinavian.
Nah sebenarnya kalau Japandi itu kenapa agak naik daun? Karena menurutku nggak dihabis masa gitu. Kapanpun bisa dipakai, kapanpun bisa kita gunakan temanya.
Indonesia is where the best adventures unfold under the open sky. A perfect canvas for extraordinary experiences.
I love this place. Absolutely love this place.
For more than 2 years now, I've been riding across Indonesia on my motorcycle.
So it's gonna be a beautiful day, guys. Let's go. Selamat pagi bro. Dadah guys. See you next week ya.
There is one ancient sport that is still widely practiced today.
Now I'm in Bandung, West Java. We are going to expose the fun and healthy dose of an extreme sport, rock climbing.
So, Pak Yudi, how long have you been skydiving?
Aku dari mulai 2019, jadi kira-kira udah 3 tahun lebih lah, hampir 4 tahun lah. Ada loncat-loncatnya segala macem dan lebih main di awan beneran kan. Nah itu yang gue tertarik.
Hidup ini adalah sekolah. Setiap jam adalah jam pelajaran, setiap tempat adalah tempat belajar, dan siapapun yang datang ke kita pasti mau memberikan pelajaran. Oleh karena itu, jangan lelah untuk belajar. Terutama belajar tentang diri. Karena kita akan seumur hidup dengan diri ini. Yang akan terus-menerus menemani kita, itu cuma diri ini.
Welcome back to See Today Updates, special coverage of the official visit of Fijian Prime Minister to Indonesia, Siti Veni Prabuka. So the Prime Minister is meeting with Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto at the Merdeka Palace today. And as we see now in the, on the screen, this was earlier this morning when the official welcoming ceremony was taking place at the Merdeka Palace. So this is the convoy of the Prime Minister of Fiji entering the premise of National Monument and to the Merdeka Palace. As the Prime Minister enters and arrived at nearby the lobby of the Merdeka Palace, he was immediately greeted by President Prabowo Subianto. So this is earlier this morning when the convoy of the Prime Minister of Fiji enters the Merdeka Palace. He was escorted in a black car with a plate reading Fiji and accompanied by a Voriders and 70 cavalry. So the car with the flags of the Republic of Fiji and Indonesian on the right and left side was greeted by not only the guards, but also 100 elementary school children from Jakarta who stood on the right and left of the main road leading to the Merdeka Palace. They were holding the flags of Indonesia and Fiji. And at the time being, they are still having the bilateral meeting. So President Subianto and the Prime Minister Rabuka are still having the bilateral meeting, talking about several aspects in strengthening their bilateral relationship. One of the aspects that were talked about are in terms of the economic sector, the financial transformation or economic transformation, also the way to enhance the trade for the both countries. Other aspects also was about agriculture, how Indonesia is now trying to aim its food resiliency and increasing the crops production. Other than that, President Subianto also promised that the country will increase the education relations, where the country is welcoming students from Fiji. Both countries are now going to the main area of the Merdeka Palace, right in front of the court. This is earlier this morning where both leaders are going to be on the stage and witness the playing of the national anthems of Fiji and continued with Indonesian national anthem, Indonesia Raya.
Hormat Honjana!
beserta delegasi. Pertama-tama, perkenankan saya mewakili rakyat Indonesia untuk menyambut dengan hangat kedatangan Perdana Menteri Rabuka bersama rombongan. Sejak pembukaan hubungan diplomatik antara kedua negara kita pada tahun 1974, Fiji telah menjadi sahabat yang baik bagi Indonesia dan telah menjadi mitra penting bagi Indonesia di kawasan Pasifik. Kedua negara kita adalah negara Pasifik. Kedua negara kita adalah kepulauan. Kita punya banyak kepentingan yang sama. Kita menghadapi tantangan-tantangan yang sama. Kita sama-sama memiliki prinsip-prinsip saling menghormati antara bangsa-bangsa. Kita kedua negara menjunjung tinggi azas kedaulatan, azas kemerdekaan, azas hak-hak kesetaraan antara bangsa-bangsa. Kita sama-sama memiliki tantangan untuk memberi kehidupan yang baik, yang sejahtera bagi kedua rakyat kita. Dalam pertemuan hari ini, kita telah membahas hubungan bilateral, apa-apa yang telah menjadi kesepakatan antara kedua negara di saat-saat yang lalu akan kita teruskan. Di bawah pemerintah yang saya pimpin, kita akan menepati semua komitmen dan perjanjian kita dalam waktu yang cepat. Di bidang kerjasama politik, kita ingin mengefektifkan perjanjian kerjasama pertahanan yang sudah kita jalin beberapa saat yang lalu. Kita juga berkomitmen, Indonesia berkomitmen untuk mendukung pembangunan pusat latihan pertanian regional di Fiji yang kita harapkan akan dimulai tahun ini juga. Kami siap. Kami juga mengundang Fiji untuk mengirim pemuda dan pemudinya untuk belajar di tempat-tempat pendidikan kita di Indonesia, di bidang vokasi, di bidang teknik, bidang pertanian, dan juga di sekolah-sekolah dan lembaga-lembaga pendidikan kita lainnya. Juga untuk latihan bersama di bidang militer, kami terbuka untuk darat, laut, dan udara. Kami membuka pintu untuk militer Fiji belajar bersama kita di Indonesia. Program untuk mendorong dan mendukung kerjasama di bidang peningkatan kapasitas sumber daya manusia dan upaya mempererat hubungan antara kedua masyarakat, rakyat Fiji dan rakyat Indonesia, kita terus lanjutkan dan kita akan menambah beasiswa kemitraan antara negara berkembang, kemudian beasiswa untuk pemuda dan pemudi Fiji. Di bidang kerjasama kawasan, kita tegaskan komitmen Indonesia untuk memperkuat kemitraan dengan negara-negara Pasifik. Dan atas nama pemerintah Republik Indonesia, saya ingin menyampaikan penghargaan kami, pemerintah Indonesia, atas kepemimpinan Fiji di Pasifik Selatan dan dukungan Fiji terhadap ikut sertanya Indonesia dalam berbagai forum, berbagai fora di Pasifik Selatan, antara lain Pacific Islands Forum dan Melanesian Spearhead Group. Sekali lagi, Yang Mulia Perdana Menteri Rabuka dan rombongan, terima kasih kunjungan Yang Mulia. Terima kasih atas kerjasama dan persahabatan di antara kita. Dan marilah kita terus menjaga hubungan ini. Yang jelas kami dari pihak Indonesia menegaskan kembali kita ingin meningkatkan hubungan ini menjadi lebih baik lagi, lebih erat lagi, lebih efektif lagi di masa depan. Terima kasih.
Next, we invite the Honorable, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Fiji, Mr. Sitiveni Rambuka, to deliver the joint press statement.
Your Excellency the President, sir. As I mentioned this morning, I bring greetings from my own President, who is also my provincial paramount chief, and the government and the people of Fiji. May we also thank you most sincerely for your international show of respect for Fiji during our trying times. You respected the sovereignty of Fiji, unlike some of our traditional friends who turned away from us at that time. You have been a very steady friend, a steady diplomatic friend, a steady cooperation friend since we established diplomatic relationships in 1974. In 1974, Mr. President, sir, I was a young officer. I was captaining the Fiji Commonwealth Games team in athletics in Christchurch, competing in decathlon, 10 events over 2 days. It was not easy, but as they said in those days about young officers, if you are stupid enough, go and do it. The President, sir, you mentioned in our friendly chat after our bilateral meeting, you remembered my name, but you remembered that I had a big mustache in 1987. That was the time when some of our traditional friends turned away from us. We had to very quickly readjust our foreign relations at that time, particularly to keep our peacekeeping battalions going. When those that provided small arms and ammunition for peacekeeping troops turned away and we could not buy weapons from them. So we developed a look north policy where some of our Asian friends stepped into the gap and provided what the battalions needed over that time when our relationships were not cordial. But you, Mr. President, sir, your country, your predecessors stood with us and respected our sovereignty, make sovereign decisions about ourselves. We would like to reiterate this morning that we adopt the same position about your sovereignty. We respect that. And we will go with you in the international fora and say to the world they have every right to defend their sovereignty and their people. The President, sir, we thank you most sincerely for the recently concluded signing of the agreement for that agricultural training center in Fiji, which will develop into a regional one. And we most sincerely appreciate your grant of 12 million Fiji dollars, which is equivalent to about $6 million US dollars, which is big for Fiji, particularly as a grant. We do not have to be burdened by the thought of carrying another load of debt. So we thank you and your government most sincerely for that. And we are assured of your assurances this morning that you will endeavor to see that commitment made by your predecessor come into fruition in the next few months. So thank you very much. In the meantime, Mr. President, sir, we have some young people undergoing training here in the fields of agriculture and livestock farming. And there is no better place to learn from than those who have developed from humble rural farming communities to be one of the powerhouses in the world of economy nowadays. So we respect you, we congratulate you, and we will take advantage of the opportunities and the doors you have opened for our people and our government to take advantage of. Right now we have one of our senior police officers in your staff college doing senior officer training, and we would like to continue to do that in your assurance in the cooperation in the area of defense and security. Would be most welcome. We recently commissioned a training center for military, peacekeeping, and disaster relief work for our military personnel and police personnel. And it's now open to the region, and with your expertise, with your experiences, it'd be a very welcome addition to the expertise offered by the Black Rock training camp right next to the airport, the international airport in Nadi, Fiji. This regional center that we are talking about in agriculture, as I mentioned to you, Mr. President, sir, is going to be in one of the previously neglected provinces near the town of Rakiraki, which unfortunately a few years ago had the previous government closing down the sugar mill that was operating there. So the livelihood of the people of the rural population has been under a lot of pressure over the last few years, and the establishment of this regional training center will be a great injection of livelihood and other skills that will be taught in that center, and we appreciate your contribution very much. We also look forward to strengthening our cooperation in the areas of medicine, research, and also in education. So, and we thank you for what you have done in the past for us. And I am fortunate. I went to Staff College in Canberra with one of your senior officers at the time. He was a colonel too, and I do not know where he is at this time, but I will be in contact with the ambassador, your ambassador to Fiji, and give him the name when I get it back from Canberra, in the hope that we will continue our camaraderie and our good personal association that we had those many years ago. But all in all, Mr. President, sir, we wish you well. We congratulate you on your growth path. We congratulate you on your growth rate, not to mention your population growth rate. But that was also very, very, as you mentioned this morning, you must grow more. As our predecessor, General Napoleon said, an army marches on its stomach. and you must grow some more and process more food that you grow locally. We are learning from your books. We'll take a few pages, maybe even a few chapters of your development book and copy it in our own development plans. Once again, Mr. President, sir, we thank you most sincerely for standing with us on the climate change and financing in that area, and also in agriculture and other developments ahead of us. So, once again, thank you very much. Terima kasih, and I wish you well and congratulate. I should have come to congratulate you immediately after you got elected, but my friend James came very soon after that. But
thank you.
I asked him to convey my congratulatory remarks, but now I'll come to personally congratulate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Terima kasih.
Thank you.
The joint press statement has concluded. Next, we kindly invite the President of the Republic of Indonesia and the Prime Minister of the Republic of Fiji to proceed to the official banquet.
Yes, we just witnessed from the Merdeka Palace the joint press and statements from both leaders of Indonesia and Fiji, President Prabowo Subianto as well as Prime Minister Siti Veni Rabuka from the Merdeka Palace. President Subianto mentioned that Indonesia and Fiji share the same values and challenges as Pacific nations. They also hold the same principles, especially when honoring nations, having sovereignty, equality when both nations are trying to make welfare for the citizens. So Indonesia and Fiji aspires to have more collaborations. President Subianto commits collaboration in politics, in security and defense, as well as agriculture and farming. And Indonesia will support the regional agriculture center that is located in Fiji. Youth of Fiji are welcome to learn in Indonesia in our vocational institution as well as other education agencies. And a lot of also discussed about military cooperation where Indonesia opens hands for Fiji to increase the human capital for both nations as well, and strengthening close relationship between the communities of Fiji and Indonesia. And as well as Prime Minister of Siti Veni Rabuka that appreciates Indonesia's welcome as well as Indonesia's commitment to have collaborations that is strengthened in the future in terms of medicine, research, education, disaster relief, peacekeeping, as well as agriculture for both nations. And other than that, the press statements seemed very casual as well, where both shared, humor and very casual chats as well. As Prime Minister Siti Veni Rabuka visits Jakarta and meets with President Prabowo Subianto, we are again reminded of the growing importance of Indonesia's role in the Pacific. As a connector, a partner, and a fellow steward of the Indo-Pacific vision, from strategic cooperation to cultural exchanges, the future of Indonesia, Fiji relations, and Indonesia's broader Pacific diplomacy rests on trust, inclusivity, and shared growth. I'm Rahma Alia, and this has been the See Today Update special coverage of the official visit of Fijian Prime Minister to Indonesia. We'll be right back at 1 p.m. with our program See Today Business. Thank you for watching. See Indonesia, see the world, see today. Bye-bye.
first candidate is a roly-poly pup.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh my God.
Isn't he cute?
What is your name?
This is Benson.
He is adorable. How did he end up here?
His mum came in. She was brought in by our inspectors.
Okay.
And she gave birth here.
Oh, wow. So he's been here for a little while.
That's right.
I've just met little Benson and he is an adorable puppy. And she specifically said to me she doesn't want a puppy and I'm going to have to knock him back this time. But I have no doubt that someone will see him, fall in love with him and he will find a home straight away.
Yeah, he'll find someone.
I'm sorry, Benson, but Jess is not right for you, sweetie.
Next candidate is a significantly larger lady.
Good girl.
You're the mini horse we're looking for.
Right.
Aren't you? What's your name?
This is Bethany.
Hi, Bethany. Oh, you're beautiful. She's pretty calm as well.
She is. She's
Good.
beautiful.
You're definitely the right size. So how did Bethany land up here?
Look, she was too active for her previous owners and also just too big.
Okay, so that might be a bit of an issue if she's too active, although at the moment she seems like she's pretty calm. So I'll take a look at her and then maybe we can do a few behavioural things to see how she'll go around horses. She looks like she's healthy, a little bit underweight, but we can definitely manage that. What do you think is important for a dog when they're going to be around horses?
You really want one responsive to the handler, and so a smart dog, a dog that can follow commands such as leave it or back away, because horses themselves can be really unpredictable.
So why don't we do some basic commands with Bethany now, and then after that we can think about maybe even introducing her to another dog of a similar size, which could be horse-like.
Yep.
Rose will use a clicker and treats to see how Bethany follows some basic commands.
Good job. Very good.
Yeah.
Bethany is definitely the right size and she's very focused on the training, which is a good thing because around horses, I want her to be focused on Jess. I think the fact that she's so easily trained means that out with horses, she'll be responding to Jess and really focused on what Jess wants her to do. I think we should definitely show her to her.
Next up.
Come on, big girl.
You're getting the size right, Rose.
She's big. Oh, hello.
You are big. You are not as well trained as my friend Bethany. Hey, what's her name?
This is Portia.
Oh, hello, Portia. Hi, sweetheart.
She's a Staffy cross Mastiff.
Okay. I can see those qualities in you.
Portia was surrendered to the shelter when her owner fell ill and could no longer care for her.
Hey, Portia, would you like to come over here and be examined?
Oh, my goodness. Oh.
Well, she's definitely going to need some training.
Yeah, she is, and she's strong.
Come on, sweetheart. That's a girl. Good girl. Strong. She's quite boisterous with handling, so I'd be interested to see how she follows some basic commands.
Yeah.
Should we test her out?
Yep.
She's quite excitable, isn't she?
Yeah, quite unruly. But she's responding well to a sit.
I'm a little bit cautious of Portia around horses just because she's so excitable. She can follow basic commands, so I think as long as Jess focuses on the training, she probably will be okay. Portia is even bigger than Bethany, so she definitely ticks that box. But when we're trying to train her, she's a little bit unruly. She's not focused, she's all over the place. And with a dog of that size, you really want them to be completely trained. Even though I'm a little bit reluctant, she fits the size that she wants, and I think we should show her and let Jess make the decision herself. Portia is definitely not as well trained as Bethany. She's bigger, clumsier, and more boisterous, but she's certainly a gentle giant. It will be interesting to see how she goes with another dog of a similar size that could maybe represent a horse.
So the two contenders will face off before they're introduced to Jess.
So here's another horse. Who What do you think? Stop it.
At the Animal Welfare League, Rose and Dr. Lisa have selected 2 whopping woofers for horse lover Jess to meet. But